There's a bit of news off the press for you. At long last, I'm going to get my sweaty palms on. Drum roll. Hey up! Welcome back. And yes, your eyes do not deceive you. I am today upon the one and only Royal Enfield from the current lineup, which I haven't ridden. It's an instantly recognisable Royal Enfield Himalayan. Himalayan, I suppose, with the correct pronunciation, because that's how they pronounce it in India and that's where the bike's made. So yes, I am today taking out for a ride and an evaluation this here Royal Enfield Himalayan, and been around quite a few years now, this bike, and is soon to be succeeded by, as we'll all know if we've been watching Itchy Boots' channel recently, a new water-cooled 450cc update to the Himalayan. But this is the original. This is a 71 plate. It's not my bike, it belongs to my good friend VFR Mitch Gaza. Go give his channel some loving. And I think he got this bike basically to get him through winter, and what a cracking idea. For today is the first day since the clocks went back to Greenwich Mean Time. Always an unwelcome threshold in my world, is that. Marks the true onset of long dark nights until we slowly turn the corner after the winter solstice, the 21st of December, there or thereabouts. So yeah, now, and I can see why, because this bike is about as good as it gets if you're after a winter hack. And of course it is an adventure bike, and whereas it does not have the kinetic qualities of the bigger adventure bikes, 900,000 cc's plus, it has an awful lot going for it and makes a tremendous amount of common sense as an all-round bike, and with a particular, shall we say, set of advantages in the winter months. We'll come on to that. So yeah, I've just ridden this from Bingley, so I've only come about 10-12 miles so far, and I'm really impressed with it. Now of course I'm no stranger to this 411cc air-cooled single overhead cam engine, because for some time I had the Scram 411, the little sister of this bike. But this actually feels a little bit more refined, and certainly the seating position and the suspension mean that it's a far more comfortable bike, certainly for me, than I found the Scram. Not that I found the Scram uncomfortable, just I find this more comfortable. So yeah, really impressed with it. Now okay, it may be only 24 brake horsepower and 24 foot-pound of torque, but let me tell you, in the real world it's more than enough. And at this time of the year, when the roads are like this, i.e. pretty greasy and slippy, and punctuated on every bend, as you can see, by wet leaves then a bike without a massive amount of power to that back wheel makes an awful lot of sense. So this isn't like running your your £15,000-20,000 leading mark adventure bike through the winter months and chucking it down road on some slippy surface and trashing it. You know, with this bike, I'd imagine even if you did that with the crash bars on and everything, you wouldn't have that immediate obsession to get the thing back to mint, would you? That bit thing. If you've got your shiny new GS and you chuck it down road in winter and knack it up from arsehole to breakfast time, hey, you're going to be as sick as a parrot, number one, and number two, you ain't going to sleep at night until that bike is back to the pristine condition in which it first came to you. And I'd be like that with a bike of that amount of value. A whole heap of value, those bikes, and all they represent to me through winter is something to worry about. So just an additional anxiety out and about in the winter months that you don't need, but not so with this bike, and that's why, to my mind, on paper alone, it's got to be a leading contender for one of the best all-round, all-year motorcycles. But my experience of riding it so far only serves to reinforce that initial impression. So let's have a look up front at the instrumentation, because there's a fair bit more than there is on the Scram. Of course, you get the Tripper navigator, you get a rev counter, which you don't get on the Scram, you get a gear position indicator, which you do get, and you get a clock, and you get a fuel gauge, and you get a compass even if you lose your sense of direction, and you get the usual trip meters and fuel gauge and what. I've probably already mentioned that, haven't I? Hey, senility setting in already. So yeah, you get a fair bit more detail from the dash layout. But anyway, that's a bit of a sideshow, isn't it? But really comfortable. Suspension is superb. Puts my super meter to shame, does this suspension. Really does, especially at the back end. Yeah, really comfortable. And I have to accept that, of course, adventure bikes in general are just about the best all-round motorcycle you can get. Absolutely peerless. Even as a long-distance tourer, I mean, the age of the sort of big, fully fed, transcontinental, if you like, tourers is coming to an end. There's only the BMWs now, and it's the adventure bikes that represent the heavy lifting when it comes to long-distance touring. And of course, Itchy Boots has ridden this bike over several continents with great success and acclaim, and it's very easy to see why. Adventure bikes in general are as regarded as being omnicompetent, and with the added benefit with this bike of being cheap to buy and cheap to run. Should be getting 70 plus to a gallon out of this. And thanks for lending me this bike with a full tank of fuel gazzer. So yeah, really comfortable, and feel really at home in these slightly sketchy roads on the banks of Gowthwaite Reservoir. Because as you know, at this time of year, if the roads do get wet, and it's absolutely bloody hammered it down, hasn't it now, for several days, lots of places flooded, the roads just don't get a chance to dry out because the sun never gets high enough in the sky, even when it does come out. So I know Gather's splattered this bike from head to foot in XCP. So he said to me, get it mucky, don't bother washing it, because all you'll do is wash the coating off, just leave it. And I think that's the right philosophy. Plus it saves me a job. And it just seems to have, well, it's much more run-in than my Scram was, but it just seems to have a little bit more poke, this, which is a bit counterintuitive because it's a slightly heavier bike. Having said that, it's an adventure bike that comes in with a wet weight at just under 200 kilograms. Very manageable. 21-inch front wheel, 17-inch rear, 50/50 tyres, and it's got a lovely lazy turn into the bends, as you would expect from a 21-inch front wheel. But no issues whatsoever. Pretty much on rails around these slightly dodgy bends. So yeah, I am very impressed. I mean, I'm not a massive lover of the looks, and only in this respect, because, you know, for me, I prefer wider bikes. I just feel a little bit more secure, and feel that I've got a little bit more road presence on wider bikes, and particularly adventure bikes. I mean, look at the width of the big 30-litre behemoths, the BMW GS Adventures, the Ducati Multistrada Enduros, as they were, rally as they are now, the Triumph, the Triumph rather, Tiger, Explorer models, lots of girth at the front end. And I think if the new one, I must have said, what I've seen of Itch's coverage of the new Himalayan, doesn't seem to be any different in terms of width and overall dimensions than this, but we'll see. Hopefully I get a chance to ride one at some point. Look at all this here water, look at that there. Out drains can't cope, you see. Yeah, so I prefer a wider bike, but that's purely an aesthetic consideration and not one that's wholly relevant to the overall competence of this bike. So you could tow two up on this, stick your boxes on, and away you go, no problem whatsoever. Now, of course, you're not going to win any races on this, but she'll peak at 80 mile an hour. And you can't do 80 mile an hour in this country, so you know, why would you want a bike that can do double the speed limit? Just lose your license. So yeah, the famous Royal Enfield Himalayan. And I'm loving it. I don't know why I never acquired one. I didn't test ride one out of Appleyards because they didn't have a demonstrator. It's the only Royal Enfield they didn't have a demonstrator for. So this is a great opportunity being afforded by my good friend here to do so. Now, hey, that last video I did, apparently, because I've not watched very many YouTube videos for quite some time now. I've been too busy with other stuff. But apparently that last one, when I did 5 good reasons for getting a Super Meteor 650. And I aligned it along the 5 senses, and a couple of people have said, well, you've pinched that off the all-year motorcyclist. Let me assure you, I haven't. I have not. And I haven't seen like I say, I haven't watched any YouTube channel for a while, so I don't know what people are alluding to there. Maybe he's done something similar, I don't know, but I promise you it ain't come from him. If you look back several months on my videos, you'll see I've used this analogy before. I think from memory, but I can't swear to it, it was when I reviewed the Royal Enfield Hunter 350 back in the spring. Yeah, if I pinched anybody's idea, I've pinched my own idea and built upon it. It was only a bit of fun, really, a little bit of nonsense, but I stand by my praises. I stand by the praises that I heap on the Super Meteor. I think it's a cracker. But it is my intention to get back to 3 bikes for around about springtime next year. Get back to 3 bikes, get through the winter, get back to 3 bikes. So there'll be something else in addition to the Super Meteor and the Honda ST1300 Pan-European. And I don't know what that will be yet. I'll be very interested to see what materialises at EICMA and the NEC that me and Gazza are going to, the NEC, a motorcycle live in November. So yeah, we'll see what Royal Enfield come up with there. Here's a bit of news off the press for you. At long last, I'm going to get my sweaty palms on, drum roll, the BSA Gold Star, courtesy of Eddie's Motorcycles in Tadcaster. Eddie's Motorcycles in Tadcaster, Royal Enfield dealership, lots of other classic bikes as well, and BSAs now. So I've spoken with Kieran there, thank you Kieran. That's a coincidence, isn't it? Because the chap that looks after me at Appleyards is called Kieran, and now the chap that looks after me at Eddie's Motorcycles in Tadcaster is called Kieran as well. So thank you Kieran. I have pretty much carte blanche to review most of their stock, so I will be reviewing the BSA Gold Star, and I will be paying a return visit with a more critical eye and longer reviews of the entire Royal Enfield range that they have demonstrators for, which is just about all of them. Yeah, so looking forward to that. All I need to do is make sure that I get all those reviews under my belt, or as many as I can, before the salt goes down on the road, because quite rightly they don't want their bikes getting salted up and all the grief that goes with that. And I'm of the same view when it comes to my bikes. If it's wet and salty, I tend to give it a miss. But I don't think you'd need to worry about that on one of these. If you bought one of these second hand, if you say you paid, sake of argument, £2.5 grand for one of these second hand, with all the crash bars on, spotlights, all gubbins, and how bothered would you be about taking it out in salty wet roads? I don't think I'd be too concerned with that modest capital outlay. I don't think I'd be too concerned at all. I mean, even if you only kept it for the winter months and then moved it on, all you'd have to do is what Gaz has done here. Just splather it from top to bottom. You know, bathe it in XCP or similar. Look at this bell end here, eh? Don't you just despise people who think that you're on a bike, that you're on a motorcycle, that you occupy about the same width as a bloody pedal cyclist? That woman there needs to give her head a wobble and show a bit of concern for the vulnerability of motorcyclists, because let me tell you, madam, if you'd have wiped me out there and either seriously injured me or put me in hospital, let me tell you, fact, not opinion or speculation, fact, you would have gone to prison. You would have gone to prison because of that offence. carries a maximum penalty of 14 years in the clink. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I suggest you Google it and go look at the number of people that have been sent down for injuring or killing people in those circumstances. It's an automatic prison sentence, pretty much. Anyway, I got that off my chest. But yeah, I nearly got wiped out there, as you probably saw. Don't know if the GoPro did it justice. But anyway, look at this here landscape. Can never grow tired of it. Yeah, so I'm going to be initially checking out and reviewing the BSA Gold Star, and I will give you an honest review of it, and if it impresses me, it may well be a candidate for me come the springtime. So we're going to just take a ride to the top of the world again, up here, in a different location to last time, up to Scar House, and we'll do the walk around and specs for you number crunchers out there. Right then, so yeah, here we are. So this is a late 2021 Royal Enfield Himalayan belonging to my pal VFR Mitch, and I think if any bike is going to cut a, shall we say, very functional, purposeful figure, then it's this here bike, without a shadow of a doubt. If the terms of reference are all year round, all weather, all purpose abilities, then this bike has it in spades, and just the job. So let's take a closer look and talk numbers. So at the front we have a 21-inch spoked tubed wheel, and what are the tyres there? S.A.S, of course, Indian make. Can't quite see the rest, but they are clearly a 50/50 tyre, looking at that tread pattern. Front forks there, 41mm forks at the front with 200mm of travel. And if we go to the other side of said wheel, we can see there we've got a 300mm disc with a twin pot unbranded caliper, but I suspect that's a bi-bray, and perfectly adequate front brake there, and as you can see there, the ABS ring. Up front we have a pretty standard halogen headlamp, and as you can see there, with the headlamp guard fitted, and Gaz has fitted 2 sets of spotlights there. One set comes on with the ignition, the other is switched. We've got crash bars top and a bottom, and of course a bash plate there underneath the engine casing. So the engine then, yeah, 411cc single overhead cam, air cooled engine, and that engine puts out 24 brake horsepower at 6,500 RPM, and just short of 24 foot-pound of torque at 4,500 RPM. And perfectly usable power for all real-world situations. Like I say, it'll top out at about 80 miles an hour, which is 10 mile an hour more rather than you're ever legally going to need in this country. And all I'll say is, Yeah, when you're going up hills you need to stir the gearbox a bit, but it's an easy gearbox to stir. Nice, positive, smooth, slick gearbox, 5-speed, and you might have to plan your overtakes a little bit more judiciously than would be the case on a more powerful bike, but that just makes you a better rider. Standard exhaust there. You obviously might want to fit something that looks and sounds a little bit more sexy. Centre stand as standard, and at the back there, double-sided swing arm, rear hugger fitted, and at the back there we have a 240mm disc with a single pot bi-brake caliper, a 17-inch wheel at the back there, and again tubed, sporting that 50/50 S.A.S tyre. And looking at the lettering, it's something like GR1PPXL, I don't know, whatever. S.A.S 50/50 tyres, what we got. I know Gaz has got the luggage for this bike. He's got some hard cases that fit on those frames there, and as you can see, the Jivy 42 litre top box, 42 litres there or thereabouts, fitted on the back there. Fairly standard indicator setup to the rear, no flashy LEDs or anything like that. Seat height is 800mm, and as you can see, Gaz has got an aftermarket seat there. I'll try and leave a link to that in the description. Looks very plush, feels very comfortable. Yeah, 800mm seat height, and the ground clearance on this bike is 220mm, so plenty of ground clearance going on there for you for when you're on the rough stuff. And probably should have said the rear suspension travel 180mm. So yeah, I think pretty cool looking bike. I mean, we went through the instrumentation earlier. That you can spec this bike out how you want, really. I see Gaz has fitted the Tech Bike Parts CNC brake and clutch levers there, and very pleasantly surprised. Having ridden this bike for a few miles now, I expected it to be far less refined than it actually is. It does feel quite refined. So there we are, the perfect winter motorcycle. Ticks all them boxes for me. So yeah, I'm 6'1" with a 32 going on 33-inch inseam, 12.5, 13 stone in weight. And as you can see, I can flat foot on this bike. 800mm seat height, I can flat foot, and that's because the seat height's not too dramatic in adventure bike terms. I mean, some of them are you know, 900 plus, but perfectly manageable. This, as I say, the wet weight comes in at under 200 kilos, so it shouldn't frighten you. And the other reason I suspect that it's easy to flat foot this bike is because it's very narrow at the waist. The riding position, 90-degree leg, basically, very comfortable. I see that Gaz has got the bar risers on there, so in original spec these bars wouldn't be quite as high as they are, but they are very comfortable. Certainly if I had one of these, I'd be fitting the bar raisers on there without a shadow of a doubt. Makes a big difference. But an extremely comfortable riding position. In fact, I'd stick my neck out and say this is probably the most comfortable I've been on any bike. I think only the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE would be as comfortable as this. Of all the bikes that I've ridden, would be as comfortable as this one is for me. But yeah, I just think, you know, if you are after a bike and you don't want to have a lot of capital outlay over the winter months, if you can pick one of these up used, like I say, probably £2.5 grand, £3 grand, get you a good one, then just an absolute boatload of common sense. Just for winter, because how many of us hunker down through winter? I mean, don't get me wrong, if you live at the top of the steep hill like I do, and there's ice on the road, then it's out of the question. You're going to be straight off any bike, aren't you, regardless of what it is. That's four-wheel territory, definitely. But those days actually are few and far between through the winter months, and why deprive yourself of the therapy of coming out somewhere like this in the middle of winter, you know, for the sake of £2,500–3,000, if you've got that sort of money kicking about. I think it makes eminent common sense to go for something like this. Leave your other bike or bikes in the garage until the weather improves, and just make sure that you can still avail yourself of days like this out here in the countryside. So yeah, heartily commend it to you. If you're after a winter hack, then I would say, rather than spending £2,000 or £3,000 on something that's 15–20 year old and making do with something that may not be put together with the winter months and all-terrain riding in mind, then why not consider a Royal Enfield Himalayan to get you through those dark times, and they are dark times, aren't they? They are pretty depressing times through winter, particularly for us bikers. So don't let your mood slip by locking yourself away if you don't need to. Get one of these. So, thank you for watching. Until the next time, ride safe and be kind, and I'll catch you soon. I'll see thee.